In the United States today, there is a severe feral cat overpopulation crisis. Estimates on the number of the cats run into the tens of millions, and they can be found in virtually every community, whether it's rural, suburban, or urban. Feral cats are too wild to be handled or easily adopted. They originate from lost or abandoned cats whose former owners did not get them neutered, and also from pet cats who are unsterilized and allowed to roam. They tend to congregate around food sources and live in groups that are referred to as colonies. Trap, neuter, return involves trapping all the cats who live together in a colony, getting them spayed and neutered, vaccinated for rabies, and then marking them for identification by tipping their left ear. The cats who are too wild to be adopted are then returned to the original territory, where a caretaker provides food and shelter over the long term and also monitors the colony for any newcomers or any problems that might develop. If you're a policymaker, there are three areas that you need to consider. First, you need to evaluate what are the actual consequences of feral cat overpopulation to your community. Second, why do traditional methods of feral cat control, some of which you may have already tried, typically fail to resolve the problem? Third, in light of the theory behind trap, neuter, return and other communities' experiences with it, is this a method that could work for you?
Shelters that are dealing with animal control are going to be the most strongly influenced, because animal control will receive complaints from the neighbors and they will go out and trap cats and bring them into the shelter. Those feral cats that come in can't be adopted, and most of them are either held for a short time or euthanized immediately. So there's a large cost involved in going out, handling the complaint, trapping the cat, bringing it in, euthanizing it, and then disposing the body. There's also costs for the shelter because of the kittens that are out on the street. Those kittens either get adopted into homes and compete for homes, or those kittens can come to the shelter and become part of the number of animals that the shelter is trying to place.
The feral cat population contributes to a rise in the intake numbers for animal care and control, as well as the euthanasia numbers for animal care and control, and of course impacts the level of staffing that the shelter needs to have in caring for these animals also.
The public health concerns here in Burlington County with feral cats really started with rabies. We have rabies in the community, and a couple of times people found cute kittens out in the wild, picked them up, got bitten, it turned out being positive. So you have to go through a series of shots, which it's very expensive to get those rabies shots now.
We receive complaints in addition on calls from citizens about cat nuisance in terms of noise, in terms of odor, in terms of digging up their yards, all types of issues. All of those complaints have a cost towards them in terms of the sending the person out, the fact that we're taking them off other investigations.
The quality of life in feral cat colonies where there's not a caretaker that's managing them ranges from adequate to quite severely depressed. And we've already shown in scientific studies that feral kittens suffer a 75% mortality rate. The hardships that feral cats in unmanaged colonies face is the stress of constant reproduction, the problems of finding adequate food and shelter, and the threat of infectious diseases. The life expectancy of an adult feral cat in one study in unmanaged colonies was only 2 years.
Feral cats have an impact on native North American wildlife through a variety of roles. One is as a predator. They may be a predator, eat songbirds, ground nesting birds, snakes, frogs, and small mammals. They may also compete with native medium-sized mammals such as raccoons, opossums, and skunks for a limited food supply. The range of that impact varies considerably across a nation. Clearly, a small island that has a large number of ground nesting birds or a small mammal population, they're going to have a much larger impact than in an urban context or an urban landscape. So the size of that impact varies considerably, as well as the vulnerability of wildlife to cat predation.
There's a lot of debate about the scope of the problem, with members of the wildlife community often arguing that feral cats are decimating native species, while feral cat advocates tend to argue that these claims are grossly exaggerated. In the end, it doesn't really matter what the numbers are. Cats are a domesticated species, and they should not be outdoors hunting wildlife. So whether it's one blue jay who's killed or millions of songbirds, it's a real problem. When you look at these consequences together, including the impact on local animal shelters, public health concerns about disease and quality of life complaints, wildlife predation, and the cat's own welfare, it becomes clear that feral cat overpopulation is a significant public policy issue that needs to be effectively addressed.
Doing nothing doesn't solve the problems of public health concerns. It doesn't solve the problem of predation because we don't decrease the numbers of cats. It doesn't solve the problem of animal welfare, both for the cats and for other animals they interact with. It also doesn't decrease nuisance complaints, which can be the major driving force for some of the government agencies.
The theory behind feeding bans is that if you remove the food source, the cats will go away. The fact is, it never works out that way, and feeding bans are notorious failures. Feral cats are extremely territorial and will not wander off in search of new food sources. Instead, they'll find new sources within the territory, or they'll encroach closer into human habitations. But that assumes the ban will be followed, and that's rarely the case. People who care about the cats will go to great lengths and risk their jobs, their homes, even jail to feed these animals.
If I was told it was illegal to feed these cats, I would absolutely not stop feeding these cats. And I know that the neighbors who assist me in this program absolutely would refuse as well.
There are many reasons why trap and remove efforts typically fail to reduce feral cat populations. For one, there are usually so many cats out there, and very few communities have the kind of animal control resources to even attempt to trap enough of them to make a significant difference.
You really are pretty much treading water. It's kind of a perpetual trap and remove, trap and remove. The volume of calls and complaints that you receive never really goes down.
The people who feed the cats and care about them oppose trap and remove efforts. These people know that the likely outcome of any kind of trapping by animal control is going to be euthanasia. As a result, they'll resist the trapping effort. Another reason why trap and remove efforts fail is feral cat population dynamics. Feral cats exist in a certain area because the habitat is suitable for their survival, meaning there's adequate food and shelter available. When you come in and you trap the cats and take them away, but you don't alter the habitat, what you've done is you've created a vacuum. It's an opportunity for new unsterilized cats to move into the territory, take advantage of the now available food and shelter, and begin the reproductive cycle all over again. When you consider that these factors are going on at the same time, including lack of animal control resources, caretaker resistance, and the vacuum effect, it's apparent why trap and remove efforts fail. TNR works to reduce feral cat populations by stopping further reproduction, by removing adoptable cats and kittens from the colonies, and by establishing a monitoring system through caretakers for the trapping and sterilizing of new cats.
There's often an immediate reduction when the friendly cats or the very small kittens that can be tamed are placed up for adoption and removed from the colony permanently. Of those cats that are returned to the colony, they gradually die of natural causes over time, and by this attrition, the colony size is reduced or even eliminated.
The cats are vaccinated against rabies. Regarding wildlife, fewer cats should lead to less predation. Fewer cats in general will lead to less of an impact in every way, whether it's on local shelters, public health concerns, or wildlife. The neutering also has the benefit of dramatically reducing nuisance behavior. And one of the biggest advantages of TNR is you can get people to do it.
The past 15 years in the United States has shown that feral cat strategies such as trap, neuter, return can be very effective in improving their lives and controlling their numbers. So we would like to see the care of feral cats go from individual caretakers to the next level, which means that communities need to embrace the practice of trap, neuter, return.
Newburyport is located on Massachusetts' northern shore and the mouth of the Merrimack River. Back in the early 1990s, Newburyport had a severe feral cat problem with hundreds of the cats living along the riverfront. The community came together to come up with a humane, effective solution, including public health officials, animal control, the Chamber of Commerce, local residents, and the Merrimack River Feline Rescue Society. They decided on trap, neuter, return, which at that time was a relatively new concept in this country and had never been attempted on that large a scale.
When we started in 1992, we had 300 cats on the waterfront. In the first year, we trapped 200 cats. We adopted out 100 cats in that first year. And by 1998, we reached 100% sterilization. And here we are now at 2007, and we only have 6 cats on the Newburyport waterfront.
Once the Newburyport feral population was under control, Merrimack River Feline Rescue Society went on to develop a holistic approach to cat overpopulation throughout the region by addressing the sources of ferals. They opened a shelter to help reduce abandonment and began holding regular large-scale spay-neuter clinics, now offered once a month and hosted by the Massachusetts SPCA. The development of Merrimack River Feline Rescue Society, like their TNR program, can serve as a model for other communities. New York City provides an excellent example of a coalition-based approach to TNR, something that's essential in a city with millions of people and at least tens of thousands of feral cats. All the organizations involved in feral cat work sit on the New York City Feral Cat Council, which is a program of the Mayor's Alliance for New York City's Animals. The council meets regularly to discuss and propose solutions to common problems and to decide upon programs and standards of conduct. The Feral Cat Council includes the ASPCA, Humane Society of New York, Animal Care and Control, Neighborhood Cats, and many of the smaller feral cat groups as well. The New York City Feral Cat Database is an internet-based colony registration system. Currently, there are over 300 colonies in the database, showing an average decline in colony size after TNR of approximately 30%. The Burlington County Feral Cat Initiative was founded by Dr. Gordon Stoll, a veterinarian who is currently the official veterinarian for the county's animal shelter.
Trap and remove has really strained the resources of the sheltering system, and as much as 25% of the sheltering dollar is devoted to the housing and destruction of feral cats. This is not a very productive use of sheltering resources.
The way the program functions is that first municipalities are approached to gain their support for TNR. Once that's achieved, the municipality passes a model ordinance legalizing TNR, regulating its practice, and providing participating caretakers with certain protections.
As far as nuisance complaints go, once we've had this program enacted about 6 months ago, we've noticed that the amount of phone calls we received have drastically dropped.
The colonies that are in the program have been reduced by attrition and by adoptions by approximately 25% on average over the last year and a half.
The wildlife community was quite concerned about the legalizing of TNR. What could have been a major confrontation instead transformed into a dialogue and resulted in the New Jersey Feral Cat and Wildlife Coalition. The dialogue is leading to development of protocols for the practice of TNR in wildlife-sensitive areas, with a pilot program being launched in Burlington County.
If we want to bring the numbers of feral cats down, we really need to have a broad-based, a community-wide approach, and that's going to involve veterinarians, wildlife advocates, animal shelters, health professionals, municipal officials, who all come together to embrace the idea of trap, neuter, return.
The animal welfare community needs to move beyond the debate of whether we should sterilize the feral cat population and instead focus on ways to best get this done. Until we stabilize the reproduction of cats on the streets and relieve some of the pressure off the shelter system, we're not going to be able to get to the deeper problem. And that's, where are these cats coming from in the first place? How do we deter abandonment? How do we educate cat owners to be more responsible? And how do we encourage the spay-neuter of companion animals? We need to get the cats out there fixed and focus our resources on the true causes of feral cat overpopulation.